All right, welcome into another episode of Carps Corner. I've gotten a lot of response, some good stuff here on training camp, and so trying to just keep diving into everything that's going on in Buckeye Nation. They're kind of closing up training camp here. School will be starting soon, getting out of this training camp grind and into more of a normal schedule. Some more takeaways of kind of what's going on, like who's stepping up, some injury issues. The defensive line spoke to the media. Um, and then one of my guys who's quickly becoming one of my favorites, Cade Stover, and some of the things that he had to say about what makes him different and why he's able to be the dude that he ultimately is. And then also Notre Dame, and some news with them, Ohio State's opening opponent, with their potential TV deal and how that ultimately will impact Ohio State. So I want to start off first. The guy who I think is playing really well this camp, and it's tough. Anytime you get injuries, it can really impact you. So I'll throw this up here. And Evan Pryor goes down, going to be done for the season. And Evan was going to be a little change of pace back, I think, for Ohio State. They were working him in. You got your two more traditional runners, Trey Henderson, and then obviously Mayan Williams. Both look really good. Both have been doing some great things. Very, very different in terms of their body type, their build, how they run. And then Evan Pryor was a great changeup. Elite top end speed, some nice wiggle. And he's a guy I think they were looking to get the ball out of the backfield a little bit. You could flex him out. You can put him in the slot, run a lot of screens to him. Because when he gets some open space, man, watch out. Came in the same class with Trey Henderson, the best running back class in the country. Guys were like 1 and 5 respectively in the rankings. And so like when you lose a guy like that, who's going to be done for the season with a knee injury, that hurts. It stings a lot because you really had a nice 3-headed monster and it gave you some depth. It gave you some opportunities. And there's going to be plenty of times for all those guys to run the football. But what that now does is it puts some increased stress on Mayan Williams and Trey Henderson. And really that room is thin. You can't afford to get anybody else hurt. And so here's one of the guys you're going to have to see raise up. And that's number 5, Dallin Hayden, the freshman out of Memphis. Hasn't got his black stripe removed yet. I feel like he's pretty close. Performed pretty well in the scrimmage. And, I give some little updates and some nuggets from guys, the young dudes who are going. But if they're not going to play a significant role early on, I like to see him kind of develop and see what happens. But Dallin Hayden flashed in the scrimmage. He looked good. He runs hard. He has good vision. He's got some good speed. He's a different runner than Evan Pryor, but he's going to have to take some of the workload. And he's going to probably have to get a handful of carries here and there throughout the season, some critical games. And that's if everybody stays healthy. Not to mention, you're going to want to get him in there. You've got Arkansas State. You've got Toledo. You have other games where the dogs are fed. Put them on the porch. Let's see what Dallin Hayden can do. And, the freshman from Memphis, they're going to expect him to do some big things. He's performed really well. You can see the physical ability there. Got some ways to go with some pass blocking. You want to make sure that you have great ball security. You have to be able to be trusted. Those things will come for him. But he's going to be the first guy that gets the crack at obviously being that third running back. Because initially, it flies up here two opportunities. And there's 2 guys on this roster who used to play running back to now play linebacker. Number 1, Steele Chambers, who it wasn't until the middle of camp last year that he flipped over and started playing linebacker. By the way, made some really nice plays in practice on Wednesday, looks really good and is moving around really well. So you don't want to disrupt the apple cart with him and set him back. Say, hey, we might need you to play a little linebacker or running back when you're finally settling in to play that linebacker position. So Steele, stay over there. The other option, and I saw this floating around a lot online when the Evan Pryor news broke, was Chip Trainum from Akron, goes to Arizona State, plays running back down there, transfers back here. To also play linebacker. Not the biggest dude you're going to find, but a really good athlete and has been flashing. And I think he's going to roll in with probably that first group. You've got Tommy Eichenberg, you've got Steele Chambers, and I feel like they're going to rotate Chip Trainum in because he's been all over the field, made a lot of plays, shown some really nice athleticism. People wonder, why didn't he come to Ohio State in the first place? Well, the guy wanted to play running back, and he couldn't play running back here, and so he ultimately went to Arizona State. Good for you. Realizes it's really tough to play running back, come back to Ohio State, get a chance to play linebacker if you want to go play at the next level. It's a little bit of the same conversation that I used to joke with Steele about all the time. You got one running back, we're getting 2 or 3 backers on the field. And you're a great athlete at linebacker. You're a good athlete at running back. So let's try to use your physical build and your skills. So Chip's been over there. I think it would be a break glass situation to pull Chip Trayanum off the linebacker depth chart and put him over there the same way with Steele Chambers, to put him in the running back room. They have some good internal options to be able to put out there. And even maybe some of the young wide receivers, you can have spot fill in there. You don't want to disrupt their development. Like Keon Graves, the freshman out of Chandler, Arizona, he's a guy that's shifty. He's good with the ball in his hand. Like, there's other options because they're so deep at receiver. So if you have a guy whose body type might fit that a little more, you could ultimately be able to utilize that and throw him back there at the running back room, get him out in some pass routes and do some things like that. And you look at, Keon Graves, pretty big dude. He's 6'1", 185. So he's not crazy tall. He's got pretty good size to him, and he runs the ball well, the ball in his hands. And so a lot of times guys in high school, they did some of that. So I think that would kind of be the order of operation. But Dallin Hayden's going to get that first crack, possibly, one of the young wideouts. And I ultimately think it would be a dire situation for you to consider pulling Chip Trayanum over, or incredibly dire to pull over Steele Chambers, because those guys are set in and the defense is really, really playing well. And that's kind of where I want to focus, because the defensive line had some media availability and they talked about that. Now, we'll get into how the defense is playing overall and on an aggregate. One more thing before we go ultimately to the defense. A guy who used to play defense, who lives with 2 defenders, lives with Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers. I want to go to this house and hang out with these dudes just to kind of see what it's like, because they're all very different people and it's pretty unique, and you always find interesting roommates. We'll throw this up here. Why Kate Stover works so hard. Said you can't take days off. It's impossible. Christmas cows eat, Thanksgiving cows eat, your birthday cows eat. They don't take days off. Why should you? On where Cade Stover got his work ethic from the farm. Cade Stover has spent countless hours this offseason working to play tight end. He's big, he's physical, he's faster than what people think, and he's really worked on his route running. And he's going to be the best tight end for Ohio State this year. Unless something dramatic happens, Cade Stover is that dude. And he's working his way into being an NFL tight end. When you see this kid play, there's a lot of things that he does really, really well. And it's the work ethic, it's the dedication, it's everything that he's about, and all of the effort that he puts in, all of the sacrifice. Team guy, that's why he was named captain, but not taking days off, working every single day. That's something that he was entrenched growing up in the farm, and it's spot on for what you think Cade should be. So moving on now to the defensive side. Defensive backs, they've been a little nicked up lately. Cam Brown hasn't been participating fully. Jordan Hancock's been out a little bit. Denzel Burke's been up and down. Like, these guys have been kind of in and out. Nothing serious, as Ryan Days alluded to, but what that's done is it's elevated J.K. Johnson and forced him to go out there and play against Jackson Smith and Jigba, force him to play against Marvin Harrison Jr., Julian Fleming. And you get all of those number 1 reps now because you're the best dude out there, or the second best dude out there. And so you're going to be matching up with those guys. And J.K. Johnson, I felt, has come a long way. There was a concern a little bit with depth at corner. And that's always a concern with a lot of teams, depth at corner, depth at O-line. But you have 3 guys who I'm fairly certain can play, especially 2 in Brown and Burke. And then I think Hancock has showed me enough in the spring, and J.K. Johnson showed a lot in the spring, and I think has really blossomed, and his confidence is showing and playing really good football. Those guys in the secondary are all helped with what goes on up front. And so you look at this Ohio State defense. I talked a lot about the linebackers, the rushman, Larry Johnson, and he's been kind of getting negatively recruited against for a while. He's getting older. How much longer does he have to coach? He's one of the best, if not the best, defensive line coach in the country. So we'll throw this up here. Said, my retirement plan is away from here. I get up every morning dying to get into this building and coach these guys. So he's got time. He wants to be out there. You see it. You can see he gets invigorated when he's around the players. He's a little bit older, but being around players and coaching players, it keeps you young. Any coach will tell you that. Whether you're coaching little league, middle school, high school, college, NFL, guys continue to coach because they love it. They can physically do it, and it gives you energy. It's tough. Practice can be a grind. Camp can be a grind, but it keeps you young. You feel good. So Larry is feeling that right now. And he's got a great group of guys to work with. He's got some elite dudes on the end. He's got some good players in the middle. They've got a nice mix of young and old guys. Talking about more about Larry Johnson, his rotation. We'll throw this up. The depth that he has. Larry Johnson feels like he has way more than 4 starters on the Buckeye D line this season. He says he'll rotate up to 12 in a game if I'm lucky. And that means that they have great depth there, maybe almost too much, because you want guys to be able to get a rhythm. You need 8, definitely 7, but ideally 8, and anything else is going to be a bonus because these guys get nicked up. They can't go out there. They can't play and perform as well. You have to be able to sub someone in. So if you have a 7-man rotation, you lose 2 guys. Now you're down to 5. So you have to have those bodies to be able to go and be able to get it done. So there's a couple guys I want to focus on here. I'm going to hammer on this. I think Jack Sawyer is going to be a star this year with everything that they're asking him to do, playing that Jack position. He had quotes earlier this week when they talked to the D-line about Jim Knowles' defense, really letting them turn loose, develop that swagger, that intensity, that passion that I think fans have been looking for. They've been craving for, and you can see it on the field with how Jack plays. Moving around, he does a lot of stuff. He appears to be pretty confident for just a sophomore. And then the guy that came in with him. Jack bulked up. He was thinner when he was at Pick North. He played a lot of positions, played some tight end, played some quarterback, played, 2 feet up a lot, meaning not hand in the ground. And so he's an athlete, can do a lot of things, but had to bulk up. And man, he's probably 270 now, 265, looks really good. And then you got JT Tui Maloau, who came in late, got in, early in camp, missed the start of camp, coming all the way from the West Coast. Big dude. But he had the other thing he wanted to do. He wanted to lean up. So he said he's lost like 7, 8 pounds, leaned up, probably a fat, looks really good, broad shoulders, big guy. And he's been playing on the other end. And watching those 2 guys battle against Paris Johnson has been a thing of beauty because they all got a little bit of crap to them and been battling back and forth, talking some trash, getting into it. They keep it friendly, but they get after each other. And that's how these guys have gotten a lot better. So JTT talking about losing the weight, feeling more explosive, wanting to be a physical piece on the end and doing all that stuff. So all those things, absolutely tremendous and fantastic. So those are your 2 sophomore DNs. You couldn't be happier right now with their development and where they're at, heading through this in this part of camp. And so then let's take a look, as we pivot here a little bit, and we'll start talking about the defensive line inside. And so there's a couple of guys who have really caught my eye with what they're been able to do. Number one, John Cage is looking really big. He's listed at 305, 6'2". He is a big dude. I think he's going to be a space eater in there. Has gotten a lot of reps and has been very consistent. So I like what he's providing as a veteran. And then I'm going to go to another guy who I've got to watch play a lot in high school, just by virtue of my dad coaching at Lancaster. Got to watch his brother play a ton, and that's Ty Hamilton, number 58. He is very tough, just like his brother Davon, and put on size, put on mass, relentless player, physical piece in there. It took his brother a while to figure it out, and you can see Ty has been on that path. It's just been a little bit accelerated, where he's gotten the size, he's gotten the explosion, he has the confidence now. And so you're starting to feel really good about those 2 dudes in there. And then you've got 2 younger guys who people are raving about and talking about what they're going to be able to do. And you hear offensive linemen talking about him, you hear the other D linemen talking about him, you hear the linebackers talking about him. Mike Hall, incredibly high motor. And you look at the guy, he almost looks like an SEC lineman. He has defensive end athleticism inside, and he's been relentless. He is a grinder, and I think as a young dude, he's going to make an impact, on this rotation. He's a guy that when you watch him play, you think, I don't know how we can't get him on the field. And once he starts getting on there and making plays, you're going to want to keep him out there more and more because of what he's able to give you and how good he can be. So Mike Hall, guy to watch this year. And then obviously you saw last year, Tui Williams, who has been really good last year in spurts. There was a little inconsistencies, but started to put it up, more consistent tape together during camp. And those two guys inside give you, I think, that SEC quality interior lineman that's really tough to find. See Bama and Georgia rolling in all these dudes that are big, fast, that can do all these different things. Hall and Williams, I think, give that ability inside Ohio State for younger players. And so keep an eye on those guys as you continue to watch them grow. Notre Dame's going to try to run the ball a lot. They're going to be rolling a lot of defensive linemen. They're going to want to keep them fresh. I don't know if you can get to the full 12-man rotation like Larry Johnson's talking, but those two guys are going to have a big impact. And when they play well, they get penetration. You know what it does? Helps the linebackers, clears up lanes. You get to watch Tommy Eichenberg run through on an outside zone and knock Trey Henderson straight off his feet. Joey Galloway was filming and showed everybody, but it was the hit of the day and it got everybody juiced up. You know what it does? It helps those corners on the edge. They don't have to cover for quite as long. Safeties don't have to cover for quite as long. Instead of giving them 3.5 seconds to throw, if you can get there in 2.5, because you have guys winning one-on-ones up front, it's going to make your whole defense better. And that has been the crux of this Ohio State defense for a long time. Pressure with the defensive line, linebackers that can fly, and you let your corners handle the back end. And safeties come up and be physical run pieces when they're not patrolling the middle. That's the recipe ultimately for success. So we'll kind of look a little bit now at some comments from Kevin Wilson. You've heard me say it. I'm super excited about this defense and what they can be. I'm an alum. I have a critical eye for the linebackers, critical eye for the whole defense, because I know what the expectations are. I know what the expectations were of, Mike Vrabel when he'd watch us play, and Luke Fickell, and Jerry Rosinski, Andy Katzenmoyer, getting a chance to meet and get to know those guys when they see us play. Like, this is the standard of what you should be. And so talking then to Josh Perry and Darren Lee and all those dudes, this is the standard of what the linebackers should be. Raekwon McMillan, all those guys. And now ultimately getting to see this iteration, heck, 20 years after I'm done, or my first year at Ohio State, like, the standard is returned. And to watch those guys go play fast together. And Kevin Wilson gets it. And I'll throw this up here. You just feel the difference, defensive presence. You feel a very early, confident defensive bunch. Long way to go. I'm sure Coach Knowles will tell you that. But man, out there, it's a daggum fist fight. I think that's all that Ohio State fans wanted to see. Last year against Oregon, go fight. Against Michigan, go fight. Against Utah, go fight. Don't let someone just run the football down your throat. Have some passion, have some pride, have some intensity about what you do. That's the mantra of the Silver Bullets right there. Don't take it lying down. Don't let someone pound the ball on you. They're not in your place, not anywhere. And it starts up front with an attitude. This front seven, the back end has to have that when they're coming up in run fits and no one throws on them. But you can see, and you can, more importantly, you can feel it. When you watch those guys out there playing, the defensive players, this is the first time in quite a while that when they take the field, they're expecting to win every snap and dominate every snap. I'm talking about hopefully we give up less than 3, 4, or 5 yards on a run and, we can contain them on passes. No, we know we're going against one of the best offenses in the country. Let's go out there and take it to them. Let's mix up what we do. Let's confuse them. Let's get after it. Let's be physical. Let's be fast. And you're starting to see that now. And it's exciting. Can't wait to see that come September 3rd in the Horseshoe at night against Notre Dame. Now I'll bring this here at the end. Notre Dame, so we'll throw this up. Reportedly made independent, agreed to a new media deal with NBC worth roughly $60 million. Dave Hookstead, huge mistake from the Fighting Irish. Could have made an extra $40 a year by joining the Big Ten. Well, that's true. My guy Jay Book comments on it. They can create a schedule for themselves, manufacture 10 wins. They join the Big Ten, they'd win 80 a year. I don't know if that's true, or they'd only be winning 8. Notre Dame's a good program, and they've built themselves back with Brian Kelly, but they do get to control their schedule. They get another, $10 million, I think, from the ACC deal and their alliance with them. And with the football games they're playing and then the non-revenue sports as well. But it's still a far cry from what they could ultimately be getting with the Big Ten. And Notre Dame values their independence. They want to stay that way. We'll see if when we get to 2025, how that ultimately looks when they start realigning the college football playoff. They start hopefully setting some boundaries and guidelines for football, transfer portals, NIL, coaching limits, all of these things get defined by teams in schools that are trying to play football at a high level. And that just means, I don't care if it's, the Power 5, Group of 5, whatever it is, if it's the whole, 10 conferences that are still out there, 130 some teams, but they're making a commitment to football. Division III, they have the same say in this right now. FCS, like all these things, it's not to besmirch them, but there's a different financial commitment when you're out there trying to do it. And there's different financial commitments within, obviously, the FBS with the Power 5, Group of 5. There's different financial commitments even within the Power 5. Not every school is trying to devote as much money needed to football to be a winner. Some of them, they take it, they put it to other sports, and they're just happy to have a team out there that competes and is average. But Big Ten doing some good things. Notre Dame potentially getting that deal done, obviously there. And for Buckeye defensive lovers, if you will, people passionate about the Silver Bullets, you should feel pretty darn good about what is ultimately happening here at Ohio State. So that's the update right now. Get you in one more coming this week. They'll be finishing camp. They'll be moving forward, getting ready to start school. Start getting some other NFL news working in as Deshaun Watson, his ruling or settlement is supposed to come down soon. So there's a lot of other things always happening. So thanks for listening. As always, subscribe, like, share, comment. We'll get in also as well to the shankability factor. So folks that know me from the podcast and done some other stuff, there's a key metric I like, especially for defenders, but you need it for offense too, to determine the toughness of your team, the grit, the shankability. Are they willing to shank someone in a fight if absolutely necessary for them to win, to save their life, to save the life of a friend? Who is willing to do that when called to action? We'll get into all that, break that down as well. So all coming up in some of these next episodes. So thanks for listening. And until next time, see you soon.